One of the most famous and popular buildings in York is that of the Castle Museum, formerly the Castle Prison, built in 1705 and having housed many desperate and deranged inmates over the years. One would expect there to be a number of unsettled spirits about the place. There have, for example, been occasional sightings of perhaps the most famous prisoner, Dick Turpin, who was confined there in the months before his execution. However, the castle has only been a museum since 1938, whereas the Yorkshire Museum, sited at the other side of the city centre in the museum gardens, has had such a purpose since 1830. Although the latter normally gains much less attention than its nearest sibling, it was a much later sighting of a different kind to that of Dick Turpin which attracted the most publicity in late 1953 and early 1954, capturing the imagination of the press. A caretaker of the Yorkshire Museum named George L. Jonas told of a strange experience that he had in the September. He reported that one evening he had been in the museum's library at a time when members of the public would rarely be in the building. He was surprised to see a man brush past him and head towards a particular shelf. His surprise was heightened when he perceived that not only was the man muttering to himself in a rather odd way, but he also appeared to be dressed in old-fashioned Edwardian clothes. Mr. Jonas rose from his chair to follow the man with the intention of gently asking him whether he was all right. As he got closer, he thought he heard what the man was muttering. He was repeating over and over the words, "I must find it. I must find it." Mr. Jonas was just about to ask the man whether he could help when, to his astonishment, the Edwardian figure disappeared right in front of him, simultaneously dropping a book on the floor. Startled, the caretaker made to pick up the book, but then thought better of it and instead decided to leave it there until the following morning, just in case he had imagined the whole thing. Sure enough, though, the book was still there on the floor the next day, unmoved. To be certain, he had brought the museum curator, or keeper as he was known, along as a witness. The curious thing about this case was that it was not a one-off event. Almost the exact same thing was repeated 1 month later at the same time, 7:40 p.m. From this moment on, Mr. Jonas was convinced that he wasn't seeing things and felt confident enough to talk about his experience with people outside of the museum staff. A month later, once more at 7:40 p.m, the apparition was seen again, this time not just by the caretaker, but also by another witness, an ex-soldier, who confirmed that the book which dropped to the floor was a copy of Antiquities and Curiosities of the Church by William Andrews, the same one as in the previous incident. By now, though, inevitably, the episode had led to differences of opinion about exactly what had happened. On the one hand, the curator of the museum, Mr. George F. Wilmot, was certain that this was an interesting phenomenon, worthy of further research, whereas Mr. H. E. Harrowell, the chairman of the Yorkshire Philosophical Society, which administered the museum, was determined that there would be no official study and that, quote, "I would not waste time on such tripe." As a result, a visit by Leeds members of the Society for Psychical Research on January the 10th was deferred. This disagreement apparently led to Mr. Wilmot's resignation, which caused quite a stir within the museum fraternity in the region. Subsequently, though, he was reinstated, and an investigation by the psychical researchers was sanctioned. On the evening of January 27, 1954, 8 people met in the museum library as observers. Each of them signed witness statements describing what they saw and felt. Although the Edwardian figure did not appear this time, some reported a feeling of cold around the legs, and all of them saw the book jumping from the shelf and the leaves of the book continuing to move whilst it was on the floor. As far as all of them were concerned, they had witnessed a supernatural event. There has been much speculation as to who the Edwardian man might have been, but many have suggested the person who actually donated the book to the museum library in the first place. He was an alderman from Darlington by the name of Edward Wooler, a solicitor and antiquary. If so, then the reason why he should be so concerned about retrieving the book is still a complete mystery.